because I do have a lot of experience in relationships, when with people in general. So when I do want to begin by saying that when we talk about relationships, that's always really important to me that people know that these are true of all relationships you're having, most severely with the people we're in love with, but also with our friends, with our dogs, with our cats, with our chairs, with our clothes, with our skin, with ourselves, with the air, with the water. Like, when I speak about relationships, I do want to make sure that we're understanding that, like, to some level, we're playing out these things in all of these things. But it's that we most trust and are most vulnerable with those we love. So it doesn't have to be that we do all this work, because we're doing it now together, and I love that. Because this is love too. Like, this is love too. And like, the sunlight hitting my face is a relationship I'm having with the sun, which is like a living, burning thing out there.
Right.
So the relationships and the trust that we have in all of those, the ones in which we live in a house together and coexist and share our bodies and our space and our food and our responsibilities and our bills, is the most trusting. But so then you have to be the most vulnerable for that to work, because if we both just go along as default people, then we're just reflecting and projecting the work we're doing with ourselves and the world and with each other. And then we're supposed to have a safe space to come home to. At the end of the day, you're both cohabitating in a box that is supposed to be a sanctuary.
Right.
And you're supposed to be each other's sanctuaries. Like, you came to live together, to never forget that that's why you're living together, is because you came to be a team. You understood these terms to some degree when you got here, and you said, okay, so we're gonna do this thing together and be a team. And so to so quickly in it realize, oh, but that means so many things are different now. And things that nobody had talked to me about, and I hadn't really had previous experience other than family upbringing on what living with another human and loving and coexisting means. We have to be our most vulnerable at least some point to say, hey, human I love, I am struggling with this thing, and I am aware enough of how I've been in the past to know that usually I do this and I shut down and I won't talk to you. And we've discovered today, because I think I'm stubborn, but really I'm afraid that what I'm saying is going to be received in ways it's been received before. But these are always new people and always new relationships. And it stinks that we only have the experience we've had to like grow each time, because it's just the best we have to work with. But that's why we need to be authentic and vulnerable, to like look each other in the eye and go, hey, teammate, came here to be a team in this house together. I'm struggling with this, and so I'm going to work on it so that when we do have our next argument, which is inevitable to some degree, it doesn't have to be an argument, and either there can be a discourse, towards growth, so that hopefully it leads towards growth instead of destruction. This is good that you know this about me. And this is where I get into always prefacing myself with everybody. So I don't know if that's the better alternative, because people don't want that either.
Right.
But to say to some degree, I am aware of this thing. I'd like to do it differently. So otherwise you're just repeating the same cycle and on the same level and doing this thing going, I know I'm doing this thing, but I'm not going to do something else, even though it's not achieving the results that I would like with my teammate here.
So then how do you get yourself out of that place of just continuing those ways and just, I don't know. How do you get out of that?
Setting ourselves up for success is always the way that we've learned, because we become aware, like you said, that I learned that I needed to walk away and clear my head, and then I could come back and authentically communicate instead of just reacting from anger and not constructively. You said that you need to go on a drive, and then you'll text message things. I used to do that too. I would go for a drive and I would make bullet point notes, and I would be like, this is the points that are important to me. Like, above what we're arguing about, at the end of the day, it's because I need to feel cared for and I need to feel appreciated. Or, and these are the ways in which it always comes back to how they always say, clichédly, use I statements, to be like, I feel like I'm being attacked. And so my defense is I recoil and I protect myself, and I don't speak because that would make me vulnerable. because then you'll have something to attack me with, my own words, to convince me that what I'm experiencing is not real for me, and devalue it instead of getting to a point of understanding and comprehension, which is what we desire in that moment. Because then we can authentically communicate. Imagine instead of yelling at each other to be like, oh, fine, I finally see what you're talking about. Instead you go, but wait, I just don't feel heard and need to be validated in this moment, and I'm afraid. And then imagine that partner coming in and hugging you, and the conversation you have in that embrace instead of yelling from across a room. Yeah. So how we get there is setting ourselves up for success in the ways that you know how. So go for a drive. Maybe instead of sending that text, maybe just save that text and get it down to its key notes. So it's not a bunch of fluff. So it's that when you get back, you know you have these 2 things that are important for you at the end of this discourse to be known. You know, like the thesis of your paper to say, right. Here is some stuff. And that's what compliment sandwiches are a tactic that I use in management and that I learned along the way. But it might be good here because when you come back, and sometimes to a silent room, because now will the fight begin again, to be able to say, you know, your thesis and what you want to say at that point, hopefully. Because it's usually not about you didn't do the laundry or whatever you were fighting about that day. It's because that makes me feel burdened and unloved, you know, and let's work from that place instead of the next level, you know, root thing, wall. But then to say, like a little compliment sandwich of like, I love you and I see the ways in which you do support me and make me feel loved. This is one way that I know that today made me feel unloved, you know. But I also know that you're like the bottom of the sandwich. I also know you're doing a great job and I love you very much and I'm happy we're doing this together, you know. Because what a better way for that person to go, oh, this isn't a fight anymore. Like, right. At the very least, if they don't say anything, at least you've been heard, which was what it sounds like right now you're not feeling. If you literally, because I'll do that. I think I'll, when it goes on for days and you know someone's upset with you but you can't say anything. So when we just hope the other person can feel the intensity of what we're feeling, so we don't have to talk about it.
Right, but they don't.
If you love that person, because they're not mind readers, they can't. It's not that they don't, they do not have the ability.
Yeah, true.
You know, we may have that ability, but even each and every one of those is still an assumption, and we have to act from that fact until we get confirmation. And that's where you make the line. If you really love that person, then it's worth it to make the extra effort to turn it into a real conversation. And if you don't, then maybe you can let that go. And that's what I'm working on, is what's better left unsaid. If, you know, but if it was someone I loved, lived with because we were partners, oh, what a different situation that would be for me. Yeah. The ways that I would love to communicate with a partner currently are ways that I'm learning how to better talk to me. And, you know, my dog helps me with that. And my friends help me with that immensely. Like, these are the loving relationships I've been cultivating over these last few years of being single for the first time in my early 30s. So in this thing we call life, to be like, the way we categorize it, all of the assumptions we have based on it, on what we should be, what we're doing together, like getting houses together, getting relationships, and then like who we are, and like so much of that is construct. And then it's like, I'm mad you didn't do the laundry. No. I'm like a being that like feels unloved. Like, let's talk from that. Like, but the love, you know, like at the end of the day, it's just you talking to you. Like, at the end of the day, the only relationship that you have that's going to last for your whole existence is yours. And even with this body, not maybe, you know, like, how would I know the me beyond this meat? To know that, like, I'm working on that love story too.